Academy. I'm just driving home after a week of events. 2 days in Bedford and then another week in Exeter. During the course of those days, we've done a range of different courses: machine control 1, machine control 2, the knee down, the machine control 3, which is a new course for this year. And I'm doing this a long time now. We're doing this since 2006, but I'm constantly reminded about the simplicity of what we do, and how often riders think that once they do it, they come and do machine control 1 and think, that's it, I'm done now. Because I've done that course, I'm fixed. I'm forever, I'm forevermore just beeped at a cyclist there on a dual carriageway. Oh my god. Bicycles are not supposed to be on a dual carriageway. Anyways, people think they do MC1 and then they're done, and they might leave it 4 years and then they pick MC2 because they think, oh sure, I've done that MC1, and then they come on MC2 and really they may as well have just started from the beginning, because they've left it so long. They're now doing machine control 2, having not really got the concepts for machine control 1. So it's an inefficient waste of their money, because they haven't actually grasped the essence of the machine control 1. And we can summarize it into basic bits. How does the motorcycle work? Okay, so once you understand how the motorcycle works, which we cover on machine control 1, it then helps you make an informed decision as to what you need to be doing on top of it. Okay, what do you need to be doing? What controls do you need to be using? And again, once you know that, what you find is it helps you fine-tune the way you sit on the bike. And that sounds really simple and basic, and of course it is simple and basic, but it helps you understand where your feet should be, where you should be positioned on the bike, where you should be holding on, and more importantly, where you shouldn't be holding on, and where your feet should not be. Okay? So part of the reason bikes are designed the way they are is to make them comfortable to actually use. But that doesn't mean you can just sit on a bike like it's an armchair and just, forget about things. You actually have to consider my feet on the pegs, for example. It's simple. It's so simple. Where are my feet on the pegs? And where would I like them to be? Where are they? Which is generally not the same thing, ever. And then, what's the advantage of having my feet in the correct position? Now, just for clarity, the correct position for your feet to be on the pegs should be that the ball of your foot, which is the part of your foot directly behind your toes, not your toes, but the pad of your foot directly behind your toes, that part of your foot needs to be on the ball of the pegs, because the way we balance generally day to day, the way you stand up and walk around, your behaviour, which has eventually developed to control your core, to enable your balance, that gets direct feedback from the ball of your foot, which helps your core system know what it should be doing with the whole core system in order to maintain balance. So it has learned to expect information about your balance from what the ball of the foot is telling you. So if you don't have the ball of your foot on the peg, from your body's point of view, the ball of the foot is not touching the ground. So it's getting no information about where your balance is. Then what happens is your body starts to try and solve this problem, because normally if you're standing up and the ball of your foot isn't on the ground, if you're not getting direct feedback from the pressure of your ball of foot on the ground, your body has learned that you must be falling back. So what it does is it engages the core to lean forward to solve this problem, and it'll keep leaning forward to protect you from falling back until the ball of the foot starts to receive pressure again from the ground, which then the core uses to determine whether it should continue leaning forward or whether it should come back a little bit, and that's how it works. So imagine what your body's going through when you're sitting on a bike, haven't really considered where your feet are, and they're just forward, so that the arch of your foot is on the peg. And whilst that might well be more comfortable to begin with, your core is in a state of pure confusion, thinking, what's going on? So it'll keep leaning you forward, and eventually you'll end up using your arms, which is not actually part of your balance system, by the way. You'll end up using your arms to hold on with the handlebars, and that will directly compromise your control over the bike when you know how the bike works. So sometimes we are actually solving problems that has nothing at all to do with controlling the motorcycle. What we're actually trying to do is we're trying to solve problems that are directly connected to your body's balance system. Okay, because until you get that right, you're not going to have conscious control over the inputs you are or are not putting on the handlebars. Okay? So, after a week of events very close together, the one common theme I have once again be reminded of is riders don't often appreciate the value of understanding that bit of information. So they get it and they have a go at it, and they definitely find it's better when they put the ball of the feet on the pegs, change their body position, hold on with the knees. They feel that's better. The problem is, after about 10 minutes, they go right back to doing what they always do. So unfortunately their behaviour, their general behaviour on the bike overrides the common sense, having learned the benefit of making a change, which means in order to make a consistent change and maintain that quality, you must keep reminding yourself, which means when you're still at that stage where you're liable to have an inefficient position of your foot, you're not really worrying about anything else. Okay, so trail braking, what gear you should be in, throttle control, that's lovely stuff to have a nice polite conversation with somebody about, or have a look at a book or research on YouTube or whatever. It's just no good to you. Okay? It's adding no quality to you at all if you haven't grasped the benefit of the foot position and the body position, and then not got excited realizing, I'm better now, I'll move on to more advanced things. It's going to take between 1 and maybe 6 months of continuous repetition and awareness of where the foot needs to be, where you'd like it, and where it should be. Okay, so we must evolve by repetition and awareness enough. We've got to do it enough times so that the body starts to realize, okay, rather than keep having to remind me, I'm just going to start developing muscle memory to always go in that position. And it's when you can't sit on the bike and ride it without the feet being in the right position, and every time you become aware, I'll just check, where's my feet, and then you realise, they're in the right place, brilliant. When that's happening 100% of the time, you are ready for more. Okay, that's very unfortunate, because Because often when people pay for a course, they'd like to think that when they go away from this course, they can apply most of the information they learned. But that's not the same as taking a little bit of all that information, focusing on that little bit, doing enough repetition, and checking and self-awareness of where things are, to then move into the next valuable stage, which is it becomes your automatic behaviour. Okay, so what I see is people that have been on MC1 this year, there's every chance that I might see them in 4 years' time, and their feet are right back where they were at the beginning. So they don't need something new at all. They don't need any more new information. They simply just need somebody to say, your feet are in the wrong place, and keep saying that until they change it, and then they go, oh yeah, that feels better. And the reason they forget it is because you can only think about this stuff for a while, and then you get distracted and you want to do something else, which is normal, but it's just not the way you get good. Another thing is how to lean the bike over. I mean, if we just think about what it takes to ride a bike well, it's not skill or techniques. Your skills have nothing to do with your ability to ride the bike. Okay, and I hear this all the time, especially on the briefing. I've just come to, develop my skills, all that kind of stuff. And what I'm trying to say to people on these courses, and sometimes I try and put it across in a very matter-of-fact way. Sometimes I take the piss a little bit, in order to help them realise all of your questions are relevant about these advanced techniques, body position, braking, all value. Yeah. But are you not better to be able to do the basic stuff really, really well, and then worry about the advanced stuff later on? So what people need, what riders need to realise, is they don't need skills. They don't need loads of advanced information and cornering technique. They need to learn how to make the bike lean. For a bike to go around a bend, it has to lean. Okay? This isn't groundbreaking information. But when you ask a rider to lean a bike over, what you actually see is lots of other things happening that you didn't ask for. So I'll ask them to go around this bend. It's a straight section into a bend. I'd like you to get a speed, whatever, we'll just say 30 mile an hour. I'd like you to keep that speed the same, which means don't add speed, don't take it away, don't change gear, don't hit the brake. Just keep that speed the same. And when it's time to lean the bike over and go around the bend, just lean it over. Boom. Easy. But when you watch them doing it, they don't seem to be able to do that. They seem to struggle to get the bike to lean over. They seem to do all kinds of random stuff with their body position. They seem to mess with the throttle loads, either roll off or roll on. So loads of stuff happening, which has not actually got anything to do or is in any ways connected to leaning the bike over. When you ask them then, what is it you're doing on this bike? And they say, and go around the bend. You go, yes, I appreciate that bit. But what I'm asking you is, what do you need to do to the bike in order to make it go around that bend? And eventually, after multiple, prompts and all the rest of it, they realise I need to make it lean over. And they're like, okay, simple. We need to make it lean over. And then, of course, comes the question, how are you leaning that bike over? And this is when we get pulled in all types of different directions, down conversations that we don't need to have. I'm weighting the peg. I'm moving my hips. I'm pressing the tank with my knee. I'm looking the way I want to go. I'm rolling off the throttle. I'm making an input on the handlebars. I'm counter steering. And eventually we narrow this down to like, okay, listen, if you don't make an input on them handlebars, which is yes called counter steering, but you have to. It's not like I don't think I do it. You have to do it. If you don't make an input on them handlebars, the bike won't lean. Bikes, when they're moving, they don't want to lean. They will, no problem. They don't want to. So What you've got to do is you've got to make the correct input, which is efficient and gets the job done on them handlebars to lean the bike over. You have two hands on the handlebars. One handlebar can't move independent of the other one. So your hands must be very clear. You must know what it feels like to make an input on the handlebars and lean the bike over. Consciously. Aware that's what you're doing. And then you realise there's no reason why leaning the bike over needs to have anything to do with your body position, or where you're looking, or the speed of the bike, or what you're doing on the brakes, or what you're doing with the gears. Because the input is made on the handlebars. And the handlebars work regardless of the speed you're doing, or what the engine is doing, or what you're doing on the brakes. For every input you make with one hand, so let's say we're on the motorcycle and you're coming to a right hand bend, there is an input that you can make on the right handlebar that will make this bike lean over. And at exactly the same time, there's a corresponding input that you can make on the left handlebar to make the bike lean over in the same direction. Okay, and in basic format, it's a push on the right handlebar will lean the bike right, and a pull on the left handlebar will lean the bike right also. So we do both of those together. The way people tend to make the input on the handlebars doesn't tend to always be consistent with the way the handlebar goes. And I've actually only just done recently a video on Facebook explaining that. Have a look at it. What I'm trying to help you understand is there's no point learning all this stuff and realising the work if you then don't spend the time consciously realising, oh yes, that's what I do. And down to the fine detail, like when I am making a push on the handlebar, where should I be feeling that push? Like where is that compression? Where am I actually adding the pressure to the handlebar when I'm making my push input? And then where am I making the input on the handlebar? Where do I feel it? Where am I feeling the effect of the pressure I'm applying? Where am I feeling that on my hand when I'm making a pull? Because that is how your body learns. Your body doesn't learn by you thinking about it or deciding right or left. That's not how it learns. It learns by matching what it's feeling when you're doing something on the handlebars, and then trying to decide, is that what you asked for? So what we want is the idea of leaning the bike right to be matched with a particular input that's happening on the right hand, feeling the pressure and where you're applying it, simultaneously with what's the left hand doing. Okay, so that's what we're trying to achieve. Once you learn to make the bike lean left and right, we then move on with that, and we think, okay, now that I have control to make the bike lean left and right, can I actually change the rate at which it leans? As in, can I make it lean slowly, and can I make it lean quickly? So that makes a massive difference to your feeling of confidence as you go round bends, approach bends and go around them. Because what we tend to see is riders who are not sure about count steering, they haven't actually figured it out yet. What you find is they can only lean the bike over at a very slow rate, okay, because their inputs on the handlebars are actually very inefficient, mainly because they're not making the inputs in the right direction, but also because they're holding onto the handlebars too tight. When you solve that problem, which takes a while, when you solve that problem, they can then generate the ability to lean the bike faster or slower. So let's just say you're heading towards a bend and you need to lean the bike over to 30 degrees to get around this bend, and you're doing 60 mile an hour. There's the average amount of time that it takes somebody to lean the bike to that lean angle, and then there's how quickly it can be done. Now the thing is, on average it can take people up to like 1.5 seconds or longer, maybe 2 seconds, to initiate the bike leaning over and actually get it established at a 30-degree lean, which the bend needs. And on average we find it takes about 1.5 seconds on average, so it can take longer. The problem is at 60 mile an hour, the distance you've travelled in 1.5 seconds is quite a long distance. So a second travelled at 60 mile an hour, and you can Google this and calculate it out and see how it works. What you'll find is it's somewhere in the region of 26, 27 meters per second is what you're actually covering in terms of distance at 60 mile an hour. So if you say 28 meters, just to make it easy, at 1 second is what you cover in terms of distance at 60 mile an hour. Now if it takes you a second and a half to lean it over to 30 degrees, that's unfortunately 28 meters plus another half, which is 14 meters. Okay? So just think about that. That's a long way. Okay? So you're talking about mid-40s in terms of meters that you've covered in one simple second before you've established the bike at the correct lean. Now if the bend, based on the speed you're going into it, if the bend requires you to be at that lean angle, which isn't very far, 30 degrees, not very far at all, and most people can lean to 30 degrees and easily beyond it, but if that bend requires 30 degrees of lean within a second, okay, the rider will find that as they approach this bend, they get a feeling like they're going too quick, the bend is too tight, and they can't get round, and they'll panic and they'll start trying to slow the bike down, because that's what people generally, that's their go-to. So what they learn from that bend is that, I went in too quick and the bend was too tight, which is, they are very often good realizations to make, and logically going in slower would definitely solve the problem. The issue we have is when the rider is having to slow down that much that it makes it inefficient, that they're having to slow down to like 40 mile an hour to get round this bend when they could easily and safely get round it at 60. So what they need is not better observation, not better speed awareness. What they actually need is to look at why they went wide. And I guarantee you, for most riders, it's the amount of time it takes them to lean it over to 30 degrees, which is so easy to solve. That's a very easy thing to solve. You just lean it quicker. But most people don't have the ability to lean it quicker or slower. They just lean it at the rate they lean it. It's a very consistent rate of lean, which is often not fast enough to establish them at the right lean angle for the bend ahead of them at the speed they're doing. Alright? Another problem with this is when people mechanically learn how to make the bike lean faster, the body doesn't really like it at all. Made worse if it's in a bad position. So if the body's already unhappy about the balance on the bike, it's going to be even more unhappy when you start leaning the bike faster. And the whole thing snowballs and becomes a much bigger problem. So as well as learning how to mechanically lean the bike quicker, you must spend a bit of time developing your body's confidence with the sensitivity of leaning quicker. So what we're trying to do is convince the body by repetition that leaning quicker is okay. It's fine. It's no more dangerous than leaning slowly. Nothing bad's going to happen. But it has to get used to it. Because if it doesn't, it will cause you to be anxious. It will cause your hands to hold onto the handlebars really tight, which directly gets in your way of leaning the bike quickly. Does that make sense? So this is all basic stuff. But when you connect them together, all of these basic things can explain why the bike sometimes feels so difficult to make it do like a simple bend ahead of you that you've already eyed up, weighed it up properly, you've already established that it's a pretty easy bend, and your speed, you feel, was right. But then the evidence of the bend suggests to you that, ooh, I got it wrong. I should mention that you could equally be a lunatic going into that bend way too fast because you're unsafe. That is also a possibility. But generally, you find it's just a lack of ability to lean quicker. Alright, so what I'd like you to do is consider the less you worry about high-end, very complicated techniques, the better you're going to be, because the bike requires very little from you in terms of skills, but it does often need you to be able to do the basic things efficiently, which definitely includes lean the bike left and right on demand. So as soon as you decide that way, boom, you can go, and then have the flexibility to be able to change that rate of lean. But each thing that I've quickly discussed here in this video can lead to an obstruction of your ability to lean the bike quicker. Alright? And the same can be said for accelerating, the same can be said for braking, the same can be said for slow riding. It is all connected. It's all connected. So try and consider that the machine control training that we do once is probably not enough to do it. You may have to do it a few times. Not because you need brand new information, but you need the environment and you need the repetition and the opportunity for somebody, knowing what it is you're trying to achieve, to look at what you're doing and give you helpful, basic, easy to understand information about what you are doing. Okay, because the more often you do this stuff, like if I asked any riders who've been on my Machine Control 1 course, regardless of how, 20 years ago, if I asked them, they'll probably go, yeah, your feet need to be in a position on the peg where the balls of your foot is touching it. And so they know the answer. Brilliant. A lot of them will have a good idea as to why that's what we should be doing. Then the next thing to ask them is, what are you doing? And they might think, well, because you said to do that, that's what I'm doing. So they think, because they know they're doing it. So what they need is somebody to watch and go, okay, that's not what you're doing. So this, what you know, this is what you are doing, and this is what you need to be doing, okay? And all we're trying to do is create an opportunity for you in the right environment, practicing different stuff, to see if that basic stuff is still being applied. And if it isn't, that's what you're trying to fix. Alright, so the other stuff we do is helpful, but no real use to you if you don't get the basics. So I'm just doing this more as a blog, because you don't really need demonstrations. It's not that hard, but I'd like, if you can, consider if you have done our stuff and you're trying to think, well, okay, there's a lot of stuff we do, and some of it will be complicated, definitely, but it'll come back to the basics. It always does. So the balls of your foot is an important one on the pegs. Your body needs to be as far forward as you can be on the bike, and you need to be holding on with your knees. That is the foundation upon which we build all of the other techniques on top. You need to be there, alright? The next important thing to consider is, if you're not using the handlebars for holding on, which is ideally what you should be trying to avoid, if you're holding on to them lightly, then you got to start thinking about, how am I using them? Am I as happy with a push input as I am with a pull input to make it lean? Am I fully aware of where exactly I'm feeling the pressure on my hand? Is it my thumb? Is it my palm? Is it my fingers? Where exactly am I feeling my interaction with the handlebar play out? And is that consistent with where it should be? Because we then consider, this is what we want to be doing, this is what we are doing, and then this what's the most efficient. So we're always measuring what we're doing against those basic principles. Alright, so often when somebody's reminded of this, they're often realise, I'm worried about this advanced stuff, and sure, I haven't just got the basics. Now in a car, it's much simpler. So in a car, like I'm driving this van now, it's easy. When I want the car to go right, I just steer right. I don't have to think too hard about it. I just hold on to the steering wheel and steer it right, and I go right. And then when I want it to go left, I steer it left and I go left. So it's nice and simple. I can do it with one hand, two hands. It doesn't really make a difference. A motorcycle follows the exact same principles in terms of, if you know what you're doing on the handlebars, it's really basic and simple to make it lean right and left. that doesn't necessarily mean it's feeling that simple. And what I'd like you to do is consider, if you get the body bit sorted out, spend a while of your riding, 20 minutes of your riding, trying to really zone into what you're feeling through your hands as you interact with these handlebars. And you're making conscious decisions like, I've got a right hand bend coming up, which means I'm going to need to lean this bike to the right. So what do I need to do now on these handlebars to make that happen? You don't need a runway, you don't need a racetrack to practice this stuff, because it's an internal thing you're practicing. You're not actually changing anything in the real world at all. This is an internal exercise within your mind as you use your senses to feel what your hands are doing. Use your body's senses to help you realize the difference between what you want to happen and what is actually happening. Because it is in that, it's in that interaction between the real world and what's going on in here where you are likely to make the most progress ever. Not paying massive money for training. If you get good training that explains to you the correct technique, that's the information. It's the using of that information that's important. But it takes focus, right? That's what you need. So, I hope this helps just fine-tune what it is you should be thinking about out there in the bike. Because I get it all the time. I get people coming to Machine Control 1 and at the end they're like, yeah, you've given me an awful lot of basic information, but it conflicts with stuff I believed. It directly conflicts with stuff I've been trying. So there's a period of adjustment to realise, okay, it's very different. But just don't use it like all the other information you've got. If you felt that it works, if you felt like, yeah, what's good about this is I got the information, I was given evidence, and when I try it, it actually works. So don't leave the value of what you've gained, don't leave it behind you when you ride away from Machine Control 1. Make that conscious effort to focus on the basic bits that actually made it all possible. Where your feet are, body position forward, holding on with your knees. How am I interacting with the handlebars? Because what you will find in most scenarios where you are struggling on that bike, I guarantee you, it's how you were interacting with the handlebars that's first of all causing the problem, second of all has the potential to solve the problem. Alright? Because I've never ever met any rider ever who's come on these courses or who are thinking about coming on these courses who have said to me, yeah, the bends is fine. Going around the bends is the easy bit. I'm delighted with them. It's the straight sections where I struggle. Yeah, the straight, I'm just like, I'm terrible. I'm really uncomfortable. I feel really nervous. That doesn't happen. So just think about why. Why does nobody ever come to me saying, yeah, straights now is where I need the help. My bends are great. And the reason it doesn't happen that way is the bike does not require anything from you at all. In terms of direct rider input, it doesn't require anything from you to go straight, which is why you find straight so easy. Everybody does. Sure, anybody can find a straight section easy. But when they come to a bend, when the bike is required to change its lean, now the bike needs something from you. Not advanced, track-based training techniques. That's not what it needs. But it probably needs to lean over. So getting good at leaning it over is a good step. And part of getting good at leaning it over is about being able to lean it over quickly. Quicker than you are doing.